Here's how we did Washington's 3 national parks in just 3 days. Now, of course, we wish we would have had longer at each national park, but we made do with the short time frame that we had. We began with the North Cascades, and we started our journey in the little town of Winthrop, Washington, and along our way to the park, we stopped at Washington Pass, which is this absolutely gorgeous overlook right off the side of the highway. You get beautiful views like this, and it's super accessible. And all throughout driving through the park, you had these amazing mountain views. Then we made it to Diablo Lake, which is famous for its beautiful turquoise blue water, and there's an overlook here that you absolutely have to stop at. For hiking in the park, we chose Thunder Knob Trail, which took us about 4 miles and had views like this from the top. We made a quick pit stop to look at Gorge Creek Overlook, which was right along the side of the road, and finished up our day at Trail of the Cedars, which had this super cool bridge right at the entrance. Day 2 took us to Mount Rainier National Park, and we were driving through clouds and fog literally the whole way up the mountain. Eventually that turned to rain, so we geared up for any unpredictable weather. Here we did the Skyline Trail, which is probably the most famous trail at the park, and unfortunately the weather did stay pretty gloomy for us for most of our hike, but we did get to see some awesome animals, which is always one of my favorite parts. We saw a pika, a marmot, and we even got to see mountain goats way in the distance. On our way back down, the weather did start to clear up a bit, and we were able to see some of the mountain ranges. We didn't actually see Mount Rainier on the hike, but we did see it later in the day, which I'll get to. But even without seeing the mountain, this is one of my favorite hikes I've ever done. All the fall colors were incredible. So we finished up the trail, and it was about 6 miles for us. We made a quick stop at Narada Falls before heading down to Reflection Lake, where the mountain finally came out, and we sat around here for the rest of the evening. I set up our table and our grill and cooked some hot dogs, and we sat and ate those while watching the most gorgeous sunset ever over the mountain. And that concluded our day at Mount Rainier, and I was just so happy that we got to see the mountain. Our third and final day took us to Olympic National Park, and our first hike of the day was Hurricane Hill via Hurricane Ridge, which was a little less than 4 miles, and it had these incredible 360-degree views of the mountains. You could see Mount Baker and even Victoria, Canada way in the distance. Then we drove to the Hoh Rainforest to do the Hall of Mosses Trail, which is another very famous must-do trail, and on our way in there was this herd of elk right along the side of the road. And the Hall of Mosses is a pretty short trail. It's only about a mile long, but even in the fall when the colors aren't as vibrant, this is still an incredible trail. And by now we were starting to run out of daylight, so we quickly drove down to the coast to see Ruby Beach. We didn't have long to spend here as the sun was literally setting, so we quickly drove to our last stop, which was the Claylock Tree of Life, because I absolutely had to see this. And we ended our day at the campground right up the hill from the tree. And that's how we did Washington's 3 national parks in 3 days.